Brandon Groce. And we are the Game Changers. Designers, creatives alike. We are in a world that runs on value. Our next designs will be the shiniest. Our next animation will be the most buttery. Ladies and gentlemen, Game Changers, let the games begin.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another EditorX Live with me, your host, Brandon Groce. I'm super excited to have you here with me for yet another live learning session because we are going to be doing some amazing things both today and tomorrow for an hour. As you guys know, you guys are here to watch us create a beautiful, interactive, and responsive website over 2 days in just a matter of an hour. So with that said, I want to say hello to you guys in the chat. We have Siddhartha. What is going on, my friend? We're both here live on YouTube and Facebook. So if I miss out on your comments, I'm looking at two different chats, so bear with me. With that said, before we dive in, I know there might be a few other people who might be new to EditorX. EditorX is a no-code platform for creatives and designers like you and myself to create responsive and interactive websites in short time. So with that being said, during these sessions, they're not just for me to show you guys how to make cool things. If you want to follow along, the live stream assets that we're going to be using to build these things are down in the link in the description. It is a EditorX library. You just click it. If you're already signed up for EditorX, it will open up and you'll be able to use those along with me to design along. And yes, these will be recorded for you guys to watch and replay over and over again. All right, so with that said, let's talk a little bit about what we're doing today. Let's show you that, who it's inspired by, and what the finished product is going to be, and then we can get into the nitty-gritty. Sound good? Dan says, so excited. Jose says, hello, my friend. Glad to have you here. All right, so let's dive in. Let's go to my screen. So this project is inspired by Amal Suresh. She is an amazing dribble creator. Okay, so our final product, what we have here, this is our version. Okay, let me refresh this so you guys can see the animation that we're going to be doing and really just how we got a nice little wheel scrolling here. You see what I'm saying? And this site is also fully responsive. So like I said, over the next 2 days, today and tomorrow, we are going to make this puppy responsive. And as you can see, we still have our nice little scrolling thing here. The scrolling wheel thing, that's what we're calling it. And it is fully responsive. Even has a menu. We didn't go too much into this, but it even has our menu and we have a hover interaction on our Explore Now button. So I'm excited to build this, guys. Like I've been asked in our Discord community, if you guys also want to join that, links down in the description. We have hundreds of designers and creatives alike asking really good questions, interacting and networking and learning with one another. All right, so let's begin. Where do we start and what's first? So first off, what I want you guys to do, if you want to follow along and actually try this out and even share it with us in our Discord, I'll show you guys afterwards if you want to do that, where you can do that. But first thing, link in the post if you're on Facebook or in the description if you're on YouTube. I have given you guys a link that should give you, if you guys see this right here, I'm actually going to just copy this again so you guys have it in the in your chat. This link will give you access to an entire asset library that has pretty much all the assets that we are going to use in today's project. The colors, the typography, and the images, and the navigation. And pretty much, other than that, we're going to start from scratch today. Let's begin. Someone is saying, I'm only seeing your streaming app on YouTube. Oh my goodness, I apologize, guys. It's the wrong screen. Give me a hot second. That should not be the case. Sometimes my desktop gets like rearranged. So thank you for calling that out. I apologize. That must have just happened probably, let's see. Sometimes my screens get a little mixed up. So let's go ahead and fix that very quickly. Dun, dun. That was a lifesaver right there. Okay, boom, boom. There we go. All right, let's redo the whole thing again. All right, so we should be good here. Chameleon lifesaver. Okay, so recap. This amazing designer, Amal Suresh, is who we're inspired by. What we're going to be doing today is this design right here. It is fully responsive. From desktop to mobile, we have our spinny wheel thing. And I'm so sad that you guys didn't get to see the full thing. But we'll show it to you again. Essentially, we have a hover interaction, all this stuff. But today, specifically, we're going to be building the desktop framework, and then tomorrow we're going to be doing the responsive and animation for this. And for those of you guys, obviously you didn't see the animation for it because I was sharing my live stream stuff. There's the initial animation. Thank you so much. Got you. All right, Chameleon. Well, at least we didn't miss too much. All right, so with that said, let me go ahead and dive into, we're going to start from scratch today. And I'm going to go and open up, I've essentially just opened up a new page or a new site in Editor X. And I'm just going to actually go to my pages here and I'm going to create a brand new one. And I'm just going to call this live stream. And out of curiosity, those who are in the chat, who is familiar with Editor X, who is brand new, I would love to know where you guys are really at in terms of your understanding of Editor X. Are you brand new? Do you not know what it is? And that way I can give you guys context on how this stuff works, how to sign up, and even really just how to create a new site. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm even gonna start from scratch even without the header. So let me go ahead and create that. Or actually, I'm just gonna go ahead and remove this from the masters. There we go. And I'm just gonna delete this stuff and we'll start from the beginning. Delete grids, and I'm going to take the color off. Okay. So when you do open a brand new Editor X page, you will see something exactly like this, except there will be a logo, a black logo here, and maybe a very simple menu with one link. But pretty much this. What we're going to go ahead and do is I'm going to actually duplicate this so I have a new from scratch, and we have next to it basically the finished product. Oh, we have a whole bunch of brand new people. Okay. So I think what we are going to do is I'm going to do like and thank you guys for that context, because the majority of you guys are just signed up, brand new. So I'm going to take the context way back, start a little bit better in terms of, you know, what's happening, give you guys context. How's that sound? All right, so I am going to, in order to do that, I do want to, I'm going to go to my editor here. I'm going to go to my sites. I'm going to close this out. I'm going to go ahead and create a new site here. And if you guys are brand new and or signed up, as soon as you create an account, essentially you will get a dashboard in my sites. All you need to do if you want to follow along is create new site. You'll come to this, which platform do you want to use? We're going to use Editor X. And I'm going to select a blank canvas, start from scratch. I'm going to go ahead and hit edit. I'm new and your title is very fascinating, so I hopped on. All right, sure. And I apologize if the name, if I kill it. Shushmita. Dan says good. All right, cool. So we're starting from scratch. This is exactly what you guys, those who are brand new, what you guys should be seeing. Like I said, you have a little logo, you have a default header, and we just have blank spaces here. And what I'm going to do, just like I said from the beginning, if you guys had clicked this link, let me see if I go to YouTube really quickly. I'm just going to pull this in. So if you guys go to YouTube, I have this link right here where it says starter file. If I click this, it'll open up and say, hey, there's this name of a design library is already on your account. If I already have it, but if you don't already have it, if you click this, it will add my design library to your project, which essentially looks like this. If we open up a new page, we go to our plus icon and we go to assets. I'm just going to click this asset library, which is DC00 interior design, which is our project for today. Now, if you guys are brand spanking new to EditorX, there are tons of basic videos. I'll try to get as much nuance in intro friendly stuff today. But if you guys want to know even more detailed stuff, please let me know and like stop me while I'm live streaming so you guys can be like, hey Brandon, I don't know what you did there. Can you scroll back for us, or where can I find additional information? On top of that, you guys can also join our Discord, which is also the link in the description, where literally it is a place where we have you know, inside and outside of these tutorials, you can ask tons of questions about what was done today, or you're trying something didn't work out, and you can ask us in our, let me just show you guys really quick. You can either chat with us. There's basically your golden place is the Q&A section, where if we didn't go over something today you want to know about, you can ask us in here and we'll get to you in about 30 minutes to an hour with a video response. But anyway, back to our session. Let's begin building. So let me close out some of these things. Just very quickly, just wanted to show you, if you wanted to follow along, where you get the assets. So let's start building. So for those of you who are brand new to EditorX, there are things that are really important to building. First thing is grids. So if we go to my actual finished product, my finished website here, I'm going to close this. I'm going to go over this with you guys as well. There's these things called sections. And the first thing, how I want to divide this up, grids are important for responsivity. So what I'm going to do at the start of creating a new website is I'm going to take this section and I basically want to create a rule. And that rule is, hey, when somebody opens my website, I want that one page basically to fit the screen size that they're looking at it in terms of the height. So I'm going to set our height to 100% VH, which is 100% vertical height of whatever device someone is looking at this website on. And I am going to essentially also go back to my inspector panel, and I kind of want to change the background color. Right now it's at 0 opacity at the white color. I'm going to click this and I am going to select a light color. I also, because this is a new project, I do want to go into my assets right here and actually add this apply styles to site. There we go. I kind of want to bring those assets into this project so I can actually pick the colors in the fonts that we're using here. So I'm going to go back into here. I'm going to select just a nice little beige color for right now. We might change this up. But what I want to do here as well is I want to start dividing this, because we have a top and a bottom of our section. We have a section for basically our nice little header of text here, and the bottom section for our image. And I actually want to select this color here. I must not saved it in the assets. I'm going to see what it is. F2EEE9. Okay. I'm going to go back into my themes. I'm going to edit this color. And I believe this should update up to all of the links or the style guide that you guys have. So let's go here. Boom. F2EEE9. There we go. Apply. Okay, so next we're going to do apply grid. We're going to select a 1x2, so we split our grid into 2 parts. And the next thing I'm going to do is create this section here for our content, all of our text. The first thing I want to do is create a container, which basically everything lives within, and we can start applying some responsive behaviors to it. So I'm going to right click, quick add, and I'm going to add a container. This is also another thing that I really enjoy about EditorX, because it's very much similar to whether it be Adobe XD, Figma. It's the way that I want to build websites as a designer. And also, out of curiosity, how many other people like are you guys with me so far? The chat is a little quiet. I'm a little concerned. But are we good? Kartik says you're going too fast. All right, we'll slow it down. Where do you guys I know this is also supposed to be like an intermediate plus beginner sort of thing. So we'll see. I'm going to try to slow it down just a little bit more, but also because there's a lot of things I have to explain. It's like the grids, what are those? And we will, what goes into that. But I think we'll change it up for today. The plan of today was to be able to, for the current community, be able to figure out how to do this stuff, even though they were already used to EditorX. But since the majority of you guys are brand new, we'll do something a little bit different. All right. Kartik says, how did you get the grid thing? All right, so this stuff is actually really easy. Let me go and just change all of my grids. So the first things first, anytime you have a section or anything that you kind of really, whether it can be a container, a section, if you just click on it, you get this little pop-up and it has all these options on it. And I'm gonna go ahead and click Apply Grid, and it gives us all of these different sections, or really these options. I can split it in half into, thirds, and really anything else. I can even do a sort of custom. But for right now, I just want to have a 1x2, so I get that top and that bottom section. And Kartik is asking, how did you do the height for this section? That's really easy. So the two main things that you guys are going to want to know, especially as beginners, is this plus icon here, which is essentially your add assets. This is everything. If it's an asset or a component, it will be in this plus icon, okay? There's also a whole bunch of really amazing pre-built things, whether it be compositions, tool layouts. Like compositions are honestly, as beginners to EditorX, like we can literally drag this out onto our web page, and it's already pre-built, it's already responsive, and we can just tweak it. But that's for another video. But as beginners, there's two tool tips or really sections that you need to be cognizant of, which is this plus button, which is add elements, and this inspector, which hosts, just like in any design program, hosts all of your properties for what you have selected. So for example, if I select my section, there's a design tab that hosts all the colors, all of the background images, if there's an overlay, all those options. And there's a layout tab that hosts all of the sizing, all of the positioning, all of the padding, all of the margins, and if I want to make this an anchor tool. So add assets and inspector. Those are the two things that we'll probably be referring to this entire time, and also how to change grids. Those are like the three main things that I want you guys as beginners to get out of this. And let me know in the chat if you feel good about that. All right, up next, what we're going to go ahead and do is we are going to, like I said, once we made this grid, we get this nice dotted line here. And what we're going to do is we can actually just drag this up and down. We can actually customize this rather than adding pixels, percentages, and all that. I can visually grab this and be like, I think I kind of want this to be down here. And Kartik, back to your question of how did we change the height of the section? If we go to our inspector and we go to the layout tab, we have our width, our height, our minimum height. We can set this to none. That's not really important to me. I really stick with the main width and height. Okay. And this is where we did the 100% vertical height. You guys can also select pixels, vertical width, and also do calculations or just auto, which essentially we don't really need to go into right now. Let's just stick with VH. All right. So up next, what I'm going to do is I want a container in my section. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to quick add, and we are going to open a container, which brings basically another box that I can create essentially grids within to start putting content in. And the grids are essentially to basically help us separate content. Okay. So first things first, I do not just want a gray box in here. I want to actually reduce the background or turn the opacity of the background to absolute 0. And we are going to Tahir says, thank you for the content, Brandon. Kartik says, great, understood, awesomeness, I'm glad. So what we're gonna do, and just like in any design program, if we want to align a particular, first we have, our grid lines that help us align things, but we also have alignment tools here. If we go to my layouter, right, remember we go to our inspector, we go to my container, layout tab, and now we have all of our alignment tools here. And I'm going to center align both vertically and horizontally my container within this grid section. Okay. With that, now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to scale this up just a little bit, just as if I'm scaling a box in Adobe XD or your design platform of choice. And I want to create, if we go here, let's take a look at this. Let's dissect what we've already done with our previous site. Our container has 4 rows, one for feel, second row for the power and the star asset, another row for align and of design, and our final row for explore now. So let's go ahead and make that. We're going to, just like we did with our section, we're going to click our container. We get to this option, apply grid, and we are going to select this 1x4 option right here. And there we go. We have now our container with 4 different rows, and we're just going to scale this using our eyes. And I'm starting to lose a little bit of space here in our section. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drag this down just a little bit, giving us more room for our container here. And all this stuff we can change as we go. I also do want to change the background of our menu here. So I'm going to go to design, background color 100%, and we're going to use our nice beige color that we have updated into our themes. And we're going to delete our logo here. Let's start with our menu, because this is really easy. We have our container, we've divided it into 4, but what we want to do with our menu is we want to kind of do the same thing. We want to divide it into 3 columns. So we have space for our logo, 1 space for our left menu, and 1 space for our right menu. So same thing, I'm going to select our header, apply grid. I'm going to do a 3x1 for 3 columns. And now I'm going to start just dragging in our assets. So I'm going to go to our add elements plus icon, and I'm going to go to assets, and I'm going to go to my assets libraries right here. And again, like I said, if you guys go into the link in the description on YouTube, it's the first link. You'll be able to download this DC002 and basically have all of the assets that we're going to be using today. And what I need to do is I actually need to steal. This is the full menu. If you guys want to plop in the full menu, great. But I actually just need to steal the logo here, okay? Because I actually did not upload that independently. So I am going to add in my logo just like this, and I'm going to go into Layouter and make sure that this is centered to our section here, or this one little centered grid that we have. Now what I want is, just like we have over here, we have our grids nice and snug up against our logo. And how we're going to do that is we're going to go to change grid layout. We're going to go to advanced mode. And we get these options here where you get these like 1FR, 1FR, 1FR. Guys, you don't need to know what that means, okay? All it basically is saying is, hey, these 3 columns, we're basically making them the width equal to one another, okay? What I want to change this to is, instead of FR, we're going to do max content. What that does, it's a lot easier to understand, which is, hey, whatever is in this square or in this container, please just like take its form width-wise. All right, so as you guys saw that, I'm going to Control Z so you guys see that again. Our container is like super big out here. I could obviously come and push and pull this, right? But rather than doing that and having to do the math, I'm just going to say, hey, I'm going to click in here, the FR, and I'm going to set this to max content so we get that nice squish. All right, so we are done there. Up next, all we're going to go ahead and do is we are going to start on our menu. So to do that, I'm going to need to make some pages. I'm going to need to make a home, about, contact, and blog page. So we're going to go ahead and go to my pages icon up here in this menu. And I'm just going to start adding them. I'm going to hit this plus button, add page. I'm going to call this about. I'm going to all caps the home. Add another page. We're going to do contact. And we're going to do blog. There we go. All right. So what we need to do now to actually get a menu in here is we're again going to go to add elements. We're going to scroll down to menu and search, And we are just going to drag out 2 menus. One here, and we are going to press Control D or Command D to duplicate it, and we're going to pull the other one right over here. So home, we're going to click on this side, we're going to manage menu, and which menu do we want to have be displayed? So this is what's awesome about EditorX. You can actually have multiple menus and display them throughout many different menus, if that makes sense. So what we're going to go ahead and do is, what we have right now is called new menu. I want to actually manage my site menus, and I'm going to change the name for new menu to left menu, and we're going to make another one and call it right menu. All right, so we have left menu. Boom. And let me know in the chat if you guys are able to, if you're following me. Are we tracking? Kartik in the chat is saying, can you show how you went to the advanced settings of the nav bar? Yes, I can. All right. So Kartik, to answer your question very quickly, I'm going to close out of my menu. So how I entered into the advanced settings is, remember, anytime I want to edit something, I'm going to click it. So I'm going to click my nav bar here. And remember, our setting right here says change grid layout. I'm going to go ahead and click that. And we now get these adjust grid options. These are the basic options I can select, or I can go to advanced mode. And now I get both even more options for how I would like to basically expand or contract the sections that I have, or really the rows and the columns that I have for this section that I have selected. So what I've done here is for this middle grid, what I've done is I've clicked in, and right here we have this setting called column width, and I've set this to max content. Before it was on essentially FR or fraction, but we want to set this to max content because what that is doing is saying, hey, there's something, or basically we're telling EditorX, hey, there's something inside of this grid, and essentially what we want you to do is take the width of the full content of that grid. Okay. It looks like Wahab says, so fast. Where are you stuck, my friend? How can I help you? Waiting, because I know that there's a little bit of a delay on YouTube, about like 30 seconds to a minute. Whoops, sorry about that, guys. I see some spam coming through on the YouTube side of things. All right, I think I banned them. We'll see, hopefully. All right. But again, let me know. I know Wahab, you came and said that it's a little too fast. Let me know specifically what you want me to go back to. I'm going to continue. But if you come back and you say, hey, Brandon, this specifically, a little bit too fast, I'll slow down. All right. So let's go back to the menu. I'm going to click on home. And remember, I'm going to go to manage menu. We have created a left menu here. And again, if you were trying to learn, or you were wondering how we made that menu, we can click the drop down, manage site menus, and we have now all of the site menus that we have. We've created left menu. I also want to create a right menu. So I'm just going to type that. And we are now just going to continue editing left menu. So right now, what we want in our left menu is home and about. So right now you just see home. I'm going to add a new item to our left menu, and I'm going to add a site page. About. Wahab says, yes, this recording is going to be recorded, or this live stream is going to be recorded. So no worries. You can rewind, you can go back. Everything will be a-okay. All right. So what I did here is I added the new item. We now have home and about, and you can see that translated on both of these menus. Now we don't want them on both of these menus. We just want them on the left. The right, we want something different. So we're going to click our right menu here, manage menu. And instead of the left menu being displayed, I want the right menu. And so now we're going to change what we have on this side. So we want a contact and we want blog. So we're going to go add item, site page, and we don't want the home on here. We want contact and the blog. So we're gonna hit apply. And there we go. That's pretty much it for the navigation. All we want to do is also make sure, if you guys are seeing this, it's very, very small on your screen, but there is essentially padding that is being recorded here on this menu on the right and on this menu on the left. So how we do that and how we dictate that is by using our inspector here. Wahab says any Discord group or any chat group. Yes, my friend. The Discord is in the description. I will also post this in the live chat as well, so you guys can join. All right. And there, if you guys, like, that's what Discord is for. If you guys have any questions that we cannot get here, Discord is basically 24/7 place where you guys can ask questions, even more in depth. We can get into things that we can't really get into here. All right, so up next, what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna work on the margin here. So I'm selecting our left menu, and down at the bottom, we see our margin options, or really our data. We see that there's a -2 margin and a 4% margin. Right now, I'm just gonna zero these out because I did not decide those. And as you can see, as I do that, this menu collapses right up against this grid here. And now another thing that is important to discuss is docking, okay? Basically what docking is in EditorX terms, is basically telling the component, the asset, etc., where do you want the element to be resting, okay? So what we want our asset or our element here, or our menu, to do is we want it to dock to the right and basically snuggle up against this this grid line here. And we're gonna left align it to there. And we're gonna do the same thing with our right menu. We're gonna left align it right up to that line of the grid so that we have 0 margin. Now I'm gonna add just some incremental margin here. I'm gonna do about 3% on the left of this menu, and we're gonna do 3% on the right of this menu. And of course, you guys don't have to use percent. You guys can use pixels. And what I like about EditorX 2 is that if you use pixels, if you use percentages, as you switch your options, EditorX understands what pixels equal what percentages and what percentages equal what pixels. So if I wanted to set, let's say, 28 pixels for margin, and then I'm like, oh, well, you know, I do actually, because we need to make this responsive, let's actually do percentage. It will then turn that 28 pixels into 3%. And Kartik says, I'm stuck. I'm not able to add the nav links. My friend, all is good. Again, you'll be able to rewatch this video. But more importantly, if you want to join our Discord and you want to actually follow up with me after this, I'll actually jump into our voice chat and we can actually go through a little bit more of what you're dealing with in the Discord. That's why we have that community, so we can actually see what you're having issues with you live and actually talk to you and work through things. Kartik is asking, how did you add the menu? So I added the menu by going to add elements and going here, menu and search. I'm using horizontal menus, and I literally can just drag out a menu onto my screen, and I can manage my menus that I've created, and you guys can see that I've done already for both the left menu and the right menu. So very simply, any asset that you can think of and you want to have on your website, you can find in your add elements section here in EditorX. There's assets, there's compositions, layout tools, buttons, there's text, there's pre-made menus, both vertical, horizontal, anchor, hamburger menus. All you have to do is just drag them out onto your scene and edit them how you would like to have them. So I hope that answers your question. But we got to move on a little bit. We got to get into our section here. All right. So let's say, this is a little too thick of our text for our menu. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to select my menu. I'm going to go to my design tab here, and I'm going to go to text. And what I want to do is I want to select, what we're going to do here is actually select the theme, because we are using a design library. And I'm going to go to, and if you're using the design library that we're using here today, you guys can use it, or you can just select whatever font that you have uploaded to EditorX or just have on file here. But we're going to go ahead and select the theme, and we're going to use heading 6, which is Open Sans font in 16 pixels. We're going to do the same thing to our right menu here. Text, heading 6. Perfect. And what we can do here is we can change the regular color, the hover color as well, and the clicked color. What we're going to do is we're going to go to hover, and we are going to choose a orange color. I'm going to go back to my project here, and I'm going to see what color we actually used for our menu hover. We used an FFA 200. So we're just going to add. We're going to go to edit. All right. We're just going to add a nice little orange. Go back to hover. Go to color, and we're going to grab our orange color here. And we're going to add that to both hover and clicked. Wahab is asking, what tool do you use? I personally use Editor or Adobe XD, and then I bring everything into EditorX. All right, so that is pretty much it for our menu. And what I'm going to do here is we are currently on the blog page, so I'm actually going to change and make sure that we're on the home page. How I do that is I go to pages and I go to home. And I do have to, just like we did, we changed the settings for the right-hand menu. As you guys can see, the home page still has a blue clicked color. So we're going to go back into our inspector, go to design. We're going to go to text, and we are going to, on the hover and clicked, we're going to change the color to orange. There we go. Now everything's a little bit more cohesive with our menu here. All right, now we can go back to our container. So what we need to do is we need to start making some spaces for all of this content, our text, our assets, and our button. So first things first, we're going to do the easiest thing is we're just going to drag in our button. So we're going to go to add elements. We're going to go to assets so we can go to our library of DC002 interior design. We're going to scroll down, and we are going to pull in explore now right into this bottom grid, just like this. Now, if you do not have the assets, you can very easily pull in any sort of button you want by going into assets, going down to button, and we have tons of buttons that you can bring in and actually edit the text for them. So for example, I could pull in start, I could click change text, and just change this to whatever. But this button right here, we just have as a vector art that I exported from Adobe XD. All right, so up next, what we are going to do is we are going to pull in some text. So what I can do, very easy, is I can right click, quick add, and I'm going to add a title. And from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just double click, and I'm going to type in feel. And all of this space, we don't need it. We can either pull it in to the same size as feel, or just so we don't have to deal with the numbers, right? We can go over, once we've clicked our text, we can go over to our inspector panel, go and look at the width, and instead of percentage, we want to set this to max content. What that does is basically say, just like we did with our menu, hey, look at our text. How wide is it? Can we please just constrain the container to the exact size of the text? And it works perfectly here. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to change the actual font. So I am going to click our text, change edit text, and we are going to use our site styles here. I can change the font here if I wanted to, but I have already saved the site style that I want for the font of the first part of this website. So I'm going to click heading 1, which is basically 88 pixels, and the font is Gallant Regular. And you guys get all of that, the fonts and everything, if you download the library in the link in the description. So there we go. We have our feel. Next, we need a line. And real quick, I'm going to look at the chat really quick. Is it possible to export things from Editor X to Adobe or Figma? And there we can edit it again. Shashmita, that's actually a really good question. Editor X has an amazing Figma plugin for a Figma plugin where you literally can design what you want in Figma, press a button, and all of that literally just uploads into Editor X, and you have a fully working website that maybe you have to just make a little bit responsive, but you can design the website you want in Figma and actually press a button, and all of that becomes a website, and all you have to do is just make it responsive. So yes, it's more so the opposite of what you asked in terms of going from Editor X to a design platform, but you can go from a design platform to Editor X. So that's a great question. And so if you use Figma, definitely look for that plugin. Just go into your plugins, type in Editor X, and it should be right there. And we'll have to do a video on that so you guys can learn that as well. I think that it would be an excellent piece of content to have so you guys can see how that works. So I want a line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Add Element. I'm going to go and find Decorative. And this is where we can find a whole bunch of shapes, arrows, horizontal lines, pretty much everything. So I'm going to go to our horizontal lines here, and I'm just going to grab one of these and just pull it into a grid here. And I'm just going to basically use my eyeballs to basically pick a size that I like. From here, we're going to start setting up our other pieces of content. So basically, I'm just going to duplicate this text here. I can Control C, Control V to copy paste if you're on a desktop, or you can, I believe it is Option. I forget what it is on Mac. Control C, Control V. I think it's Command C, Command V on Mac. It's been a while. But essentially, I'm just going to type in our other words here. And I don't have to mess with all of the width and all that, because once we've set max content to this, all the other text box, if we look at the inspector panel, will have the width of max content. So Command or Control D to duplicate. Next word is power. Okay, Control D. I'm going to pull this into the next row. And one thing I do want to do is I want to check these assets and see that they are truly in the actual correct grid cell. So one thing I want to introduce to you guys is, let's take a look. I'm going to click Feel and look at the inspector. It says this is in row 1. All right. If I click it says that it is in 2 different rows. We don't want that. We want it in one row. So I'm just going to select row 2 to make sure that it's in 1 row. And same thing with power. It shows that it's in 2 rows. I only want it in 1. So those are things that you want to make sure that your content is in the correct places. This next piece, power, we want it in row 3. And I'm checking my button here, just making sure that it's just there. Okay. Okay, and we're going to do of design, double click, of, Control D, double click, design. Sorry about the spam messages on YouTube, guys. They keep finding us. All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move this stuff over. We're going to duplicate this line because we want another one in our bottom line here. Whoops. I'll pull it right in here in our third column or our third row. And I'm just going to scale it down like this. And now for our second row, we need to get our star. So again, I'm going to go into our quick add, or excuse me, our add elements. We're going to go to assets and DC002. Wait for the assets to load really quick. And we're going to grab the star. Uh-oh, technical error. Let's see what's going on. Reload, we might need to refresh. All right, here we go. So we have our star. I'm just going to take it, I'm going to pull it, and I'm going to drop it right in our section here. And now it's low, it's way too big, so I'm actually just going to pull it to the size that I want. Perfect. And I'm going to try to find a decent space between these. So what I like about this too is, just like in our design programs, we can actually equally distribute content. And what I mean by that is, if I select multiple assets, holding shift. So I'm holding shift, clicking the star, and the power. And now I have multiple elements here in the inspector panel, and I can either center them or really align them any way, or I can distribute horizontally equally. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And it looks like I did that by eye. Love it, Brandon. Great stuff as always. I dig it. I'm glad that you're enjoying it. So basically, I have distributed the content, the star, and the power horizontally by clicking this. Now what I want to do is I want to place this in a container, because what we need to do is set rules for each one of these pieces. Because once we start getting responsive, right? Once we start getting like this, and what we'll be talking a little bit tomorrow, is we need to set rules and say, hey, when things get to this size, this is how you need to morph. This is how you need to break, essentially. So we have to add some constraints. So first thing, we're going to place in container, and that's really what we're going to do for all of these rows here. Okay. So we have a first container. We're going to apply a grid. We're going to do a column of 3. We want one column for each piece of content. We want in the first row. The star, we want in the second row. Power, we want in the third row. Or excuse me, in the third column. Okay. So for our star here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this manually. I'm going to make sure that this is centered within that little container grid. And now what we're going to do, since we have been very much a fan of max content, what I want us to do in this container, just so we don't have to do the math, is we're going to change grid layout. We're going to go to advanced mode. And just like we did with our menu, our navigation, we are going to do the same with this. So we're not going to use the FRs. We're going to do max content. So max content for column 1, max content for column 2. Actually, we're not going to do that, because what we need to do for this star is actually give it a specific width in pixels. So I'm going to set this to 130 pixels. Maybe we'll do 120. Or 117. I'm going to set this to fixed. And so this is another thing, guys. Sometimes some of the options will be blanked out. It's probably because you're either on fixed or on fluid. Wahab says, is it possible to export the HTML code of your designs? I do not believe so. I believe everything that is built in EditorX stays within EditorX. So I want to set this to 120 pixel width, 120 pixel height. Minimum width, we're going to set to none. And reason being, if you guys saw that a little bit ago, the options here for width and height were actually like I couldn't edit them, and it was because of the docking situation, I believe. So I had it docked to the left and the right, and as you guys can see, it blanks out the width. So I undock, I get my width back, I can edit, and we're going to set it to pixels as of right now. After that, we're going to go back to our container, change grid, advanced mode. We're going to go from 1 FR to max content, and we're going to do the same thing right here, from 1 FR to max content. So everything is nice and snug, and as you can see, it's not nice and snug yet on the power, right? There's still some extra space. So let's take a look as to why that is. And I believe it's probably because right here. So sometimes, guys, and as you get more and more familiar with EditorX, which is why I highly recommend, there's tons of more beginner-friendly videos around EditorX on this YouTube channel, so do not forget to subscribe, like this video, and also just stick around. There's a lot to learn in EditorX, but the main things that you will really have to learn in order to really start, as you start getting into EditorX, is how to understand grids within sections and containers. And on top of that, the third thing is how to make those things responsive. Today's a little bit faster paced session, but we have EditorX Academy, we have other beginner tutorials here on the YouTube channel, and a lot of content where you can get, you know, the basics of EditorX and come to live learning sessions like this and be a little bit faster paced. So I appreciate your guys' questions and patience, because I know we have a variety of community members here today. So the challenge that we had here is that the width that we had set this container to was set to 73%. Instead of that, we want to set, because we're dictating a percentage. We're basically saying, hey, this container, you are inside of another container. Please take the form of 73% of the container you're within. If it's 100, this is what it looks like. It will be the full size of this row, but we don't want that. We want it to conform to everything within itself. So we're going to set again to max content, and there we go. Now we have everything is nice and confined. I want to make this star just a little bit smaller. Center it horizontally and vertically. And the first thing I actually want to do is, because everything is nice and snug, we need some space. So I'm going to select my star, and we're going to start adding some margin here. We're going to start with 20 pixels on the left and 20 pixels on the right. Perfect. So we have our first container. Beautiful. And we're essentially going to do the same thing to both the top row and the bottom row. How are we feeling in the chat, ladies and gentlemen? Looks like we're doing all right. All right, so next thing. We're going to start up here. This is really simple. I'm going to select Fill, hold Shift, select this line, place in container. Next thing, we're going to have to apply a grid. We're going to do a 2x1. And I believe it's a 2x1. It might be yeah, it's a 2x1. So we're going to have space on the left for Fill, and we're going to have space on the right for our line. Our line here, I believe for right now we can set to 100% so it fills that full width of our right grid. And I do want to see, just to see how I built this. We had max content for the fill and 1 FR for our line here. And I think that's because we did not set a very specific size for our line here, but I think we can actually change that. We're going to set this to pixels. So we have 277 pixel width for our line. And we're just going to collapse the left side of the container to max content. So we're going to click on this container, change grid layout, go to advanced mode, click here, 1 FR, we're going to set this to max content, beautifully. And instead of 1 FR, we're going to see what we can get with max content. There we go. And again, we have some extra space here. That is because we have our container set to probably a percentage. Yep, we have at 81%. We're going to set this also to max content. We're going to add some space between fill and our line here. We're going to set this to about 20 pixels to the right. So we've selected our text field. We've scrolled down. We've selected our inspector. We're in our layout tab, and we're scrolling down to our margin settings here, and we've done 20 pixels. All right, up next, we're going to do the same thing for our bottom row here. Holding Shift, selecting our line of InDesign. Well, first off, let's actually it doesn't matter. We don't have to do the margin or the spacing just yet. We're going to select all. And we are going to place in container. Apply grid. We're going to do a 3x1. And we're going to set everything to, we're going to set this to 100% for right now. So it fills that space. Go from 100% to pixels. So it's 188 pixels. We're going to then select, make sure our text is every element has its own container, or its own grid rather. Its grid section within the container. So our line is in the first position, is in the first grid cell, of is in the center grid cell, and design is on the right grid cell. All right, so we're gonna change grid layout, advanced mode, set everything to max content. So everything is nice and snug. Just like that. And here, one last time, max content. Perfect. All right. And again, we're going to change the actual width of our container because as you can see, there's extra space here. We have our container selected. We're going into our inspector. And instead of using percentages, we're also going to set this to max content. Perfect. Let's add some of our spacing. We're going to do 20 pixels of margin on the right and left of this content. So 20 pixels on the right of our line. Our of right here, we already have some invisible margin that was basically automatically created for us. We don't want that. We're going to zero this stuff out and make sure that of is literally right, left lined and inside of that container nice and snug. All of our margins are set to 0. We're going to set a 20 pixel margin on the right of, and we should be good there. Okay, so now we've done all of our containers for the first 3 grid cells of our main container. Okay, all I'm going to do is I'm going to left align all rows just like this. Perfect. And I think because I kind of want everything to look a little bit centered, I'm going to reduce some of the size of these things here. So I'm going to reduce this line here. And as I do that, it is going to reduce, as you guys, basically the container collapsed on itself. Now, why it didn't all the way, why there was some space here, is we have some minimum width. We want to set this to none. We don't want there to be any minimum width. We just want the container to collapse nicely to what's within it. I'm going to do that with the minimum height too. I'm going to set this to none. And I'm going to kind of do the same pretty much for all the other containers we have made, just so that there's no other settings dictating what's happening here. We just want it to look at the max content. Okay, we're almost there. We're going to pull this line in just a little bit more. There you go. And you see how everything is kind of like responding a little bit? Where because we've used the max content, because we've used the padding, if I move any of these things, or even if I type in, any more here, the columns expand and contract with the content that's actually truly inside of them. Okay, so what I'm now going to do is I'm going to select the main container. All of our rows are within. Okay, and I'm going to set this also, the width, to max content. There we go. So now everything is nice and confined. We're going to remove the minimum width to none, minimum height to none. And our explore button right here, we're going to make sure we're just going to have it docked to the top. And for those of you, again, recap, what docked means is basically, hey, as soon as we start, getting into responsiveness, which we're diving into tomorrow, we're saying, hey, please just make sure that this asset sticks to this wall, or this wall, or this wall. It's building a relationship. Okay. So up next, what we're going to go ahead and do is we now want to basically, now that we have this container, right? It's nice and smooth. It's going to respond if we, for example, if we continue to add letters into design, like the entire container, as you guys see, it expands and it can contrast too. So it's nice. That's a nice responsive piece that we have. But now we kind of want to continue going throughout the site and doing some basic responsive tweaks. So first off, we want to make sure that this is centered to our section because it doesn't look like it. So I'm going to take our container. I'm going to center it. There we go. Now this section, we have some space here that I really don't like. So I'm going to select our section, change grid layout. And of course, what I could do is I can just pull this and just change the actual height but manually, or even, you know, yeah, either manually, but I don't like doing that. So I'm going to change grid layout, advanced mode. I'm going to go, now you guys can see our main section, we made 2 rows. All I'm going to do is I'm going to right click over here, and instead of doing a min max row height, again, we're going to do max content. What this is going to do is it's going to look at everything that we have in here, right? And it's just going to collapse on it. Now, why this is basically just in the center of everything and it's not super collapsed is we never did max content for the height of this. And we're going to do that right now. Set this to max content. Perfect. And I believe I also want to set the height. Exactly. So we did max content for our rows here as well, so that everything basically shrinks height-wise in our main container. And in the individual rows, we did max container for the width. Change grid layout, advanced mode. We're going to set all of this to max content so we get that nice squeeze of the content. And rather than, whoopsies, let's Control Z that. Max content, let's go to max content. And this, let's see. We'll figure out why that happened. All right, so let's click done. Let's see what's happening here. Let's go to our container. And let's see what's going on here. Aha! So I knew there was something wrong. Remember how important I said it was that to have and make sure that your assets and or containers or whatever are within the correct grid cells. So here, I select the container and it's living in 2 grid cells at once. We just want it in 1. Okay, we want it in that second row. And why that's important is we literally just saw what happens when you don't. I clicked on this container, advanced mode, and I tried to make this max content. But what it was doing was saying, hey, what looks like is in this row is really in not just 1 row, it's in 2. So we made that change. Max content is now good. All right, we're good to go. So now everything is nice and smushed. Why we have space up here is because we did add that nice 21 pixels to the top in terms of margin. And we do have 3.3% margin to the right. We don't need that. So I'm going to zero that out. All right, so part 1, top of the website is looking pretty good. We want a little bit of space between the navigation and this part of the menu. So we are going to add about, I'm going to try 50 pixels. Let's see what we have here in terms of margin. We have 2%. So let's go ahead and with that, I'm going to set 2%. There we go. Excellent. Now I also like this because, like, if I had moved this line for the section grid cells manually, if I had added, just like I did, 2% margin, I would have to move the line again. Versus using max content and just saying, hey, look what's inside you. How much space is it taking up? Please take up that much space. All right. So what we have left to do is we are going to add this asset here, and we are going to add our spinning wheel as well. I'm going to show you guys just a little code snippet you guys can add, and that will be it for today. And tomorrow we are going to take this puppy and we're going to make it responsive. First of all, for those of you who might have just popped in, we're going to add some animations to it, hover interaction, and also we're going to make this puppy responsive. Okay. So that's what we have for tomorrow, if you guys want to join on in. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and grab our image. We're going to go to our plus, our assets, DC002, and I'm going to pull in the image that we have, and I'm going to make sure that I pull it into that bottom part of our section, just like this. Now, as you can see, it kind of looks like, well, the image that I pulled in is going over the navigation as well. We don't want that. How we fix that is we're going to click on our section that we put the image in, go to our inspector, and we're going to go to overflow content. And what we don't want to have happen is actually show it. So what we're going to do is hide it. So basically now there's basically a little bit of a mask of the container, or really the section, showing only what's inside of it. Everything that kind of goes outside of it is hidden. So now I'm going to go ahead and center this here. I'm going to give it a little bit of margin at the top. We'll do 2% as well here. And let's go ahead and make our little wheel here. So this was really easy. All we did was just dragged in the image. We gave it a little bit of margin. And I do also, what we could do, I'm going to see if I did it here on the previous version. Yeah, I didn't. I was thinking maybe we could do max content, but a little bit of, cut off of the image is totally fine. But if we wanted, we could show the full image. And if you guys want me to, I can show you how that's done, but maybe we'll just drag this down for now. Just give it some space. But I feel like the cutoff was more pleasing. Okay, so what we're going to go ahead and do is grab our assets for our spinning wheel. And I need to actually add those because I added these late last night. So I am going to take this entire container, or actually I'm going to add both of these individually, the arrow and the scroll thing. I'm going to save as asset, arrow, add to DC002, add. And you guys should get this update if you already have that library link. As I upload these, they will be in your library link automatically. Save as asset, and we're just going to call this circle. DC002. Perfect. We're going to go back to our site that we started from scratch. And let's go ahead and refresh. Okay, let's go back to our plus assets, DC002, and let's look. There we go. So we have our arrow and we have our circle. We're going to pull out the circle first. This puppy is going to be really big. Okay, we're going to set this to about 200 pixels. We're going to center it so we can find it. It went off screen somewhere, and that's another pro tip. If you drag something onto the screen and it just goes into La La Land or somewhere, all you need to do is make sure that it's selected. You can select it by going into your layers panel. We're going to call this circle, and just make sure you have it selected and use your alignment tools to actually bring it into view. That's a pro tip, okay? So I'm going to bring this down into our corner of our website. I'm going to go ahead and grab our arrow, pull this in, bring it inside of our circle here. And as you guys can see, that you already get the alignment tools, right? So I was just pulling this around, and that's why another thing I really like about Editor X is that it actually is just like, hey, you're in the middle, you're aligned, you're good to go. And I can just click and drag. So what I want to do is I want to select both the circle and my arrow holding shift, and I want to place it in a container. And I'm going to open up my inspector. And the thing that I want to do is, if you guys notice, on the actual live site, this is sticky. This stays with me the entire time. So what we're going to go ahead and do is, as we have selected this container, we are going to go to position type. Instead of default, we're going to go to pinned. And we want to pin not to section, but to page. And as you guys can see, these lines are going to the top and to the left. We don't want that. We want it to be docked to the right and to the bottom. So to the right and to the bottom, and we're going to undock the left and the top. And we're going to pull this all the way to the bottom corner here. And we're going to make sure that our container, as you guys can see, this container it's not fully formed to what's inside of it. Just like what we did here, we kind of have to make sure that the container that is hosting both the circle and the arrow fit it naturally, so that there's no weird mismatch. when we start getting to responsive things. So I'm gonna make sure I select my container here. I'm gonna go inside the width. I want max content. No minimum width. I'm gonna set that to none. No minimum height. Set that to none. We might do minimum height. We might do 200 pixels. But we'll keep it for auto for now, which is basically saying, hey, take a look at. It's pretty much very close to max content. It's basically just saying, hey, look at what is inside of you container, and just please adjust your height and or your width automatically to fit what's inside. Okay, so now our container fits the size of our vector images. All right, so we're gonna click into our vector art here. I also want to make sure that my circle is below my art. And by the way, this is the layers panel. I know we're going over that a little late, but again, this was a little bit of a, you're kind of used to Editor X, maybe not brand new spanking beginner, but that's your layers panel. That would be the fourth like between 3 to 4 important things that you want to know as a beginner, like brand spanking new to Editor X, is your asset, like where are your assets, where can you pull things in to Editor X on the canvas, where are your layers, right here, second icon from the left, and your inspectors panel. And again, if you guys are still brand spanking new to Editor X, please do make sure to watch other tutorials on this YouTube channel, because there are tons of content that we have done in weeks prior that break down these things. Okay, so let's go back to our container here. We're going to, again, bring it right here. We want, for right now, I think we'll do, I'm curious what numbers we used over here. Oh, and we're actually going to close, we're going to delete this footer. We don't want that. So now, I wonder if we just stuck it 0. Okay, it's 0 everything. So we're going to set this to not the top, bottom, right. Oop, we did that to the vector art. I was wondering, I was like, I don't see any dock lines. So making sure my container is selected, because that's the thing that's going to dictate where these things sit. And I'm docking that 0, 0 to the left and the right. So now it is in the very far corner of really the right side of the website. And as I scroll, it's staying there. Now, as I preview this, by the way, those of you who are wondering why, as I preview this, these components have animations, it's because they are from the asset library, and the asset library keeps the animations of the components. So these components with the hover interaction and the image, those already have animations from our previous project that we have saved in our assets library, which is also really cool. So as we preview this, we see that our scrolling, or is supposed to be turning circle, isn't turning. So all we need to do for that, and then this will be the end of today's segment. Tomorrow, come back for responsiveness and animation. You guys can go to editorx.com, infinite rotation. I'll put this in the chat. And what you guys find is basically a tutorial that shows you how to implement this into your website. It shows you how to create it. And literally it's like this. The code is already there. All you gotta do is copy it. And you go back to your EditorX site. You select, let's go back to edit site, not preview. Go back to, you select the asset that you want to have this rotation. So I'm gonna select the vector art. And before that, I actually need to turn on dev mode, okay? Turn on dev mode. And the reason being I need to do that is I actually need to, these elements that I have, I need to actually give them and actually get a, first I need to be able to put code. But secondly, I need to be able to name my items. So let me go ahead and scroll. Let me push this down here. So what you'll notice is the layers panel actually looks a little bit different. Now we have, I'm calling them a hashtag or a number. Basically we have tags before the name. And these are exactly what we're going to use to actually say, hey, code, do your thing, but to this object, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just delete all of what that text or that code was on the home page, and I'm going to paste what I've gotten from this page here. I'm going to just paste it, and the thing that I am going to actually replace, and the code, and basically this page tells you everything you need to know, but what we need to replace is the your element ID. And so what we're going to do is this vector image, our circle, which is what we're going to call our circle, is what we're going to place right here. So I'm just going to select this. Replace that with circle. And we are going to, let's go to preview. Let's minimize this. All right. Okay. I did it with the arrow. Okay, wrong one. All right, so that is the arrow. This is why you name your layers properly, guys. Okay. This is our arrow. Vector image 2 is our circle. If I can get the E after that, that would be great. Okay. Let's go to preview. There we go. So now we have our circle is rotating. We have everything really set up nicely for us tomorrow to start getting into responsive and animation. So ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this video and this live stream, this will be on Facebook for those of you guys who are in the Facebook group, and this will stay on YouTube for you guys to rewatch and replay. And if you guys have any questions, please join us in our Discord, as there are tons of questions that I have to get to today. But we have part of the EditorX team in here, as well as many other hundreds of creatives like yourselves building really cool things, chatting about what they're working on, video games, if that's what they're working on at the moment. But it's a great resource for you guys to start getting into no-code development, so that the world is changing, guys. And as designers and creators, being able to build front-end things without code, and really just, we basically built a desktop website in an hour. And tomorrow we're going to make it responsive, which is awesome. So that's, imagine, like yesterday, I literally made 2 websites in a matter of maybe 2 to 3 hours. Like, that's crazy. And I was like, I still had time, So being able to do this as our market is moving, and being able to churn out responsive, beautiful things without knowing like the underlying code. And the community in EditorX also, for things like this, being able to just say, hey, if you guys want to produce this sort of interaction, hey, just copy this code, copy it to an element. It's a great community of, one, being just able to bring your websites and your designs to life in an easy format, but 2, having a community where they give you code snippets if you want to do some interesting things, as well as these live learning sessions in the Discord if you want to help yourself, try out some new projects on a weekly basis, or even just go to our community and be like, hey, I've tried this hasn't worked out, what's wrong, and we'll jump in and help you out. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm super excited. Tomorrow we'll be here, same time, same place, at 1 p.m. EST, 5 p.m. GMT, on both YouTube and the Facebook group. And with that said, we'll see you then. So don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and I will talk to you tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, and I would love to see you in the Discord. With that said, have a great day, and we'll talk very soon. Bye. Actually, I lied. Coming back really quick. Kira says, thank you so much. I did want to ask, because there were so many new people in the chat today, how did you guys feel about this session? Because we're trying new things and we really want feedback. If you guys have a second or two, whether it's now in the live chat or in Discord, and just letting us know a little bit of your feedback, that would be tremendous, because we are trying to do these on a weekly basis. And what that means is literally every week, Monday and Tuesday, to try to bring really cool, interesting things that can be built in an hour with people who are either not familiar with EditorX at all or semi-familiar. So feedback from you guys would be tremendous in terms of understanding what type of content, what type of things, do we need to separate intro and intermediate sort of live classes? So let us know in the Discord or even the live chat here. It would be tremendous. And thank you so much for your time, and I will see you tomorrow. All right, bye for real now. Peace. You want to create dope